The growth of Arab nationalism in the aftermath of World War I was accompanied with the rise of Islamism. In some Arab nations, the Islamist movement aimed to overthrow a secular pro-Western government in the Middle East to establish Islamic states governed by Sharia law. In this video, we're going to talk about the Iranian Revolution and how it come by from overthrowing the Iranian monarchy to an Islamic republic for Iran, what it is today. Many citizens of the Middle East resented the post-World War I settlements which gave Britain and France mandates to administrate their nations. Leaders of Middle Eastern countries were chosen for their willingness to collaborate with the foreign powers, and many of them were corrupt. Ordinary people were given few, if any, democratic rights. While Britain did provide constitutions and elected assemblies, its advisors ensured that British interests were served in any governmental decisions. In World War I, Persia was divided between Russia and Britain, but the Russians withdrew after the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, leaving Britain's sole rights to exploit Persian oil in the early 1920s, with the British identified Raja Khan, a senior figure in the Persian military, as a leader who could maintain the Anglo-Persian status quo with the British backing. Khan led an armed campaign to crush political position in declaring himself Shah of Persia in 1925. Riza was a fierce believer in westernization. The Shah modernized the infrastructure of the country, which was renamed Iran in 1935. He abandoned Islamic education in favor of a more secular curriculum, discarded much of the Sharia law, and discouraged Iranians and obeying to the call to the prayer or from making pilgrimages. The result was ever greater social division. While the upper class became more secular and Western in their outlook, the masses who were forced to pay heavy taxes to fund the Shah's reforms and remained impoverished and deeply religious. Reza Shah offered support to the Nazis in World War II, hoping that Germany would help Iran to rid itself of British influence. The Shah's Nazi sympathies threatened Allied access to Iranian oil, so when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, British and Soviet troops invaded Iran. Reza Shah was deposed and replaced by his son Mohammad Reza.
Gurkha infantry and other empire troops enter Kermanshah as from south and west Britain sends forces into Iran. The Axis-poisoned country of the recently abdicated Shah was once a happy hunting ground for Nazi agents. The peaceful invasion is watched with interest by Iranian soldiers as our forces pass in long columns through the towns to make contact with the Russians coming down from the north. Near the town of Kazvin, the two columns meet, and the long Allied front reaching from the Arctic to Libya is joined. British and Russian commanders shake hands, and the soldiers of Great Britain and the Soviet Union meet for the first time. Across Iran, 3 times the size of France, roll the mechanized forces of the Allies, while the people of this ancient land look on with seeming indifference. In the capital city of Tehran, life goes on much the same. There's that man again, but he's had his nose badly put out of joint this time.
Resentment of Western influence deepened. In the post-war years, students spearheaded a backlash against secularism, and corruption. In 1951, political unrest forced the Shah to loosen his grip on the power and appointed Mohammad Mossadegh as prime minister. Mossadegh nationalized the assets of the Iranian oil company. With the height of the Cold War and fears of growing Soviet influence and in the Middle East, Britain and the US blocked sales of Iranian oil, and Iranian's economy descended into a crisis. In 1953, Western intelligence service supported a military coup which restored absolute power to Mohammad Reza Shah. The Shah's rule became increasingly dictatorial. By the 1960s and 70s, he had a thing called the White Revolution. The land reforms to the country weren't really a success, but it also disenfranchised farmers. He improved the education for Iran. He allowed foreign companies to invest into the economy, and that's how building new factories. He also made women's rights for the country, but that also pissed off the huge Muslim population of the country. While his secret police ran a campaign against dissenters, and had many of the rural poor were suffering from malnutrition. The Shah led a lavish life on oil revenues, which grew from the annual of $25 million in 1960 to $18,523 million by the mid-1970s. In Iran's mosque, the teachings of an exiled Ayatollah, a high-ranking Muslim cleric, were gaining ground. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini had been exiled in 1964 for calling the Shah a puppet of the West. His teachings called for an end to the Shah's regime, insisting that only clerics should rule, since they are the true representatives of God. By 1978, Khomeini had widespread support. Pro-Khomeini demonstrations were brutally suppressed, but unrest still spread from city to city as clerics, nationalists, and moderates united in a struggle for change. Although martial law was imposed, many troops refused to shoot at protesters in December. The U.S. tried to persuade the Shah to liberalize his regime, but the revolution was now inevitable. The Shah and his family fled Iran on January 16, 1979. Khomeini returned to Iran on February 1, 1979. After initial fighting between political factions, a popular referendum voted for the creation of an Islamic Republic. A new constitution named Khomeini as Iran's supreme leader. Clergy were appointed to run state institutions, and Sharia law was introduced. On October 22, 1979, U.S. President Jimmy Carter allowed the Shah to enter the U.S. for cancer treatment. This outraged Iranian students who wanted the Shah returned to Iran to face trial. So they invaded the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and taking 63 American hostage. Although the Shah died less than a year later, Khomeini refused to release the hostages, holding 52 American captive for 444 days. The crisis finally concluded with the signing of the Algiers Accord in January of 1981. Khomeini's defiance of America was a key factor in Western governments' support for Saddam Hussein's invasion of Iran in 1980, and their willingness to provide him with weapons during the eight-year-long Iran and Iraq War. By the time Khomeini died in June 1989, Iran was a well-established Islamic state. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. The Iranian Revolution. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.